And welcome to another live happiness question and answer show where I'm really excited about hearing from you. We talk about everything to do with life because everything to do with life affects our happiness. Welcome, Len. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here tonight. It's a great joy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely welcome. So I want to do a really quick intro before we get going. So I want to hear, Len, from you. What are your spiritual influences? Because a lot of what we talk about here are from different spiritual backgrounds. So please, Len.
Well, I started off as a fundamental Christian for many, many, many years. I'm looking about 25 to 30 years. I've followed a very fundamental Christian path. In that time, I arrived at a place where I felt it didn't work anymore for me. And I started studying the mystery traditions, the esoteric Kabbalah, and the tree of life. I started working meditational work, energy work, spiritual meditations. And with the esoteric Kabbalah, it includes things like astrology, natal astrology, discovering your soul path, and eventually it led to also a bit of tarot work, but the quest is for the higher self connection, ultimately. So doing all of that finally led me to the place where I'm now well connected to my higher self. I have a very powerful connection, which helps a lot. And I also do hypnotherapy practice where we learn to explore consciousness, to explore the multiverse, the multidimensional universe, and we work with the higher beings in the dimensional universe as part of the work we do for our clients. So that is pretty much my influences in a nutshell.
Cool. Thank you very much for sharing that, Len. So I'll do my bit. My influences are everything. So when I say everything, that's terrible. Let's say all spiritual traditions. So that's from your usual religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, also Buddhism, Hinduism. And you might say, how is that possible? Well, there's a teaching in Islam that says that for every people we have sent a messenger. God has sent a messenger. And that totally makes sense to me. It would not make sense to me if God had only provided some sort of teaching for one person at one point in time and it ignored everybody. So those are my spiritual influences, all spiritual backgrounds. So that's my thing. And the second bit of the intro is, Len, where are you going on your spiritual journey? The point of asking that is so that other people can feel like if Len's going somewhere and I'm listening to Len, maybe I'll get there soon as well. So Len, go for it. Where are you going?
Right. I'm ascending to the fifth dimension. How is that happening? Planet Earth, according to the subconscious human collective consciousness. Planet Earth is in trouble and has been crying out. And a lot of our clients are producing this information while they are in trance state, and the higher self collective starts speaking to us and telling us that Planet Earth has been asking for help. 3 waves of soul volunteers have entered the Earth plane over the last 40, 50 years. And they are all telling us that the next thing that's going to happen, the big thing that's going to happen for the Earth to be rescued out of this problem that we've got, the way humanity is destroying the planet, is through the process of ascension. So we've got a situation where all the eyes of the cosmos are currently focused on what's going on in Earth, not only in this dimension, but from the higher dimensions as well, because they are all working and standing by to help us ascend from the third to the fifth dimension, from the third density to the fourth density. And the material about that comes from the law of one, the Ra material. So we are in the process of ascending at this moment. It started in 2012, and the Earth is raising her vibration to get ready for the fifth dimension, for the fourth density. And people are feeling the shift. We call it the shift. There's a shift in consciousness happening, an awakening, and awareness is shifting, and that is currently the big thing. So what it comes down to, it's the end of the world as we know it, and bigger things are coming up in the very near future, and we think it's going to be about a 10-year process, and then it's all over.
All right. Thank you very much, Len, for that. Hopefully everybody could follow that. That was pretty deep stuff. So we're always taking turns. And so where am I going? If I could describe it in the usual kind of spiritual traditions, which is I am trying to disappear. What does that mean? It means let go of my ego so much that my only purpose is to, on one side, connect with God. And that's when you, like in Islam and many other teachings, to let go of your will, let go of your ego. So there is no self. And when there is no self, you're free to flow direct or be connected with God. And people experience that when they're connected with nature. When they let go of themselves, they truly feel nature. And the other element of it is, so one side is God, and the other element is to do how God introduces himself as the one who's very giving, and not only giving, but also wishes people well, or encourages people to do well. So in short, I'm leading myself to a place of the opposite of individualism. I call it otherism, which is my wish is that you do well. So that's where I'm going. So we've got a timer in the middle. If you're wondering what that is all about, that is every week, by the way, the format changes. I get a lot of feedback from the viewers, and so one of the viewers said, you know what, just keep talking to each other, don't do a speech like you did in the beginning. So and I really enjoyed talking to Len, so that's good for me. So there is still 3 minutes. We're going to do 3 minutes per question. So if there's something you're not interested in, it'll be over in 3 minutes and it'll get to the next one, right? Okay, please ask your questions. I'm going to help my controller, Sundars, because she was out in the park or something and I didn't actually give her all the instructions. There are two things, Sundars. There's a chat. You're going to have to keep checking the chat. Oh my gosh, there's a question from Energy Farmer, Mr. Basil. Basil, I just want to say thank you so much. Basil is like 10 or 13 years old. Don't be insulted if you're like, I don't know, 13 and I called you 10-year-old. That's not a big thing. You'll find out when you're 30 years old. So Sundars, click on the questions if you see a question, but if there's no question for a minute, click on any of these. Do them in order. You good? Okay, she's just dropped her earpiece, but she'll be back in a minute. Okay, so can you get back to the chat? This is your test. Can you get back to the chat? You are in control. Click on the question, click on the timer, and I'm going to always let my guest Len go first. But so Len, like we kind of briefly mentioned offline, it's just like you say something for a minute maximum, I say something, but it's just a chat. Yes. Go for it, Sundars. We got the question on the screen.
Got a question?
Yep. Go then.
Spiritual illnesses is really about a matter of being disconnected from who you are at soul essence, and to re-energize, to recover. There are various things one can do. A lot of people say go and sleep, spend some time resting and sleeping. Sleeping is not only good for physical recuperation, but sleeping is also important because your soul travels to the astral plane, and on the higher planes is an astral temple that we visit, where you can go into a spot. It's like a temple of light, healing light, and the soul often goes there to go and bask in the healing light in order to experience a recuperation. When you are conscious here on the earth plane, it is important for you to make sure you get enough time in nature, walking around in the woodlands, going to a lake, a dam, somewhere in the forest, in a beautiful garden, and allow yourself to breathe. Just soak in the energy, breathe and breathe in the energy. Imagine you are surrounded by healing light, white.
Oh, sorry.
Light.
By the way, Len, what we're doing is 3 minutes total for both of us.
Oh, really? Then I'm
This
stopping.
is how disorganized I am, right? This is like we should like a quick chat online. Like this is what we're gonna do. So don't worry. But we should laugh at ourselves, right? That's good. It's good. It's good. Sorry, Len. I didn't explain properly.
That's,
So anyway, all I'm gonna say briefly is
yeah.
you should never give up, first
No.
of all.
Yes.
And so there was a beautiful story. I'm going to give you the short version. It goes
Yeah.
something like from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it went that there was a guy who'd committed 99 murders. And he said, okay, like I better change my life before I, die, maybe before meeting my maker. And so he went to some spiritual guy and he says, what are you going to do? What can I do? And he said, like 99 murders. That's way too much. Like, forget it. So he said, you know what? If it's too much, I'll just kill you. So he was on 100 murders. And then, he was feeling bad about it. And he said, let's give it another shot. Ask somebody else. Maybe they know better. This guy was a bit wiser. And he said, you know what? Just go to this city where the good people are. It's kind of metaphorical.
Mm.
And so the point is, it's quite hard to keep a story into 1 minute, but all I'll say is that always just make an effort, creep towards it, never give up. That's always the case in spiritual traditions. And God is the most kind, and he's always ready to forgive you if you make an effort. So I took up the rest of the time there, but anyway, this is all an experiment.
It's a minute and a half each. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Energy Farm. Thank you, Barso. I think his name's Barso, Energy Farmer. He lives at a farm, by the way. Maybe that's the reason why it's called Energy Farmer. Okay, we got another question. Really appreciate the questions. Sundus, you want to go?
I don't have targets as such, so I don't really work by targets. I find that because I'm well connected to my higher self, the still inner voice within, every now and then I'll get a sign that says it's ready for you to progress to the next level. And we've had 3 stages of development over the last 5 years in my life where as soon as I see the signs, the next level is coming, a journey is ending, a new journey begins. I find myself literally observing that happens in my life. There's a change, there's a shift, and what I used to do and where I used to be, I'm no longer there. Within the next week or 2, something changes in my life. I experience a shift of the energy, a shift in pace, and I start experiencing new things. I start exploring new things. New things are given to me that are moved before me by my higher self collective. I find that the higher self collective is much more tangible than my Christian path, which was open to guessing. You had to do a lot of guesswork. Are you hearing God? Is God telling you things? And now that I've got my higher self working with me, I find I'm a lot more tangible in the answers and the directions that I'm getting.
Okay, cool. So I would say from the various spiritual traditions, one is to live life as if today is your last day. So I don't really think in terms of what I'm going to achieve in 10 years time or 1 year's time. It's like, am I going to be happy the way I am behaving today if I was to die today? Am I happy with who I am today? Am I trying my best? There's a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that says, do not wake up in the morning expecting to live till the evening. Do not go to sleep at night expecting to wake up in the night. There's also, in terms of other kind of planning, non-spiritual planning, there was a great, another spiritual teacher called a Khalifa called the 4th Khalifa, is a spiritual teacher after Prophet Muhammad, and he said, live your spiritual life as if you're just going to last until the end of the day, also just like Prophet Muhammad said, but plan your physical life as if you're going to live forever. That's what I remember. So that means you try to do things for the benefit of humanity in the long term. So don't just do things short-term things, because they don't really make huge impact. So I think what we're doing here is we're taking 1.5 minutes. That's how it's working because we've
It
got
looks
so
like
much
it.
to say. We'll
Yeah,
just do that. We'll do
yeah.
that.
I do
Cool.
find that you cannot pour from an empty vessel. I think it was the Buddha that said you cannot pour from an empty vessel. So it's important for yourself to make sure that you are rested, you are replenished, you are fed, you get the sustenance spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, mentally as you require before you can begin to start investing in others, pouring out of that vessel. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. That is quite important.
Yes, I agree with that. Take care of yourself. I agree. I'm really trying, Len, one of the I shouldn't probably be talking about all my plans and the whole show, but I'm really trying to talk slower. Trying to talk slower. I was told, talk like David Attenborough. Do you know him?
I know him very well.
How is that going to
Yes.
work with me on this show? I'm going to try.
I'll tell you what, David Attenborough doesn't have a minute and a half to say what he wants to say.
But I think there is a value in kind of emphasizing. I'm going to give it
Yes.
a shot.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, Sundus, we have a whole bunch of questions lined up. See if you can find them. So yes, that's the first question. How do you find the truth? Which is the topic of this show. We should have done that. But anyway, let's go for it. Anyway, Len, my guest, please, you go first.
There was a time in my life when I used to believe truth is absolute. It is cast in concrete. As a Christian, I used to believe the Bible was truth, and that is the only truth there is. Since I've had my soul awakening about 10, 11, 12 years ago, I no longer believe that. The truth you hold 10 years ago is not the truth you hold now. You evolve, and as you evolve, your truth evolves. What worked for you 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago, may not work for you today. So as a result, I'm in a place now where I believe that truth itself evolves. Truth is relative, is the correct word. Want to use that phrase very much. Remember, truth is relative. It's relative to where you are today and where you will be tomorrow and next week. And the truth that you may receive today may not necessarily be the truth that will help you through to make sense of this reality today, because next year you may receive some insight and some understanding, like UFOs arrive and suddenly the world is filled with UFOs and aliens that are here to help us. What truth do you hold then? It may be different. So that is pretty much all I can say. Where to find truth? Within. Your guidance always within. The higher self, the soul within, the fragment of God within is there to help you, to work with you.
All right, thank you, Len. So I agree that learning spiritual truths is a deep journey, meaning that your understanding of truths develops. So I would agree. That's how I agree with Len. Maybe that's not what Len is quite saying, but that's how I feel. The second thing is the first thing is, why do we care about the truth? So there's a biblical saying, the truth will free you. That's paraphrasing. And that's so beautiful, because what we're saying here is, if there was a truth that, collecting things doesn't make you happy, that will free you, rather than, so you don't spend your whole life chasing things. And how do you find truth? You find truth by telling the truth to yourself. So what I mean is, like, don't lie to yourself. If you realize that money doesn't make you happy, don't chase it. So yeah, I'm trying to stay way within my budget, as it were, time budget. I'm trying to do the 1 minute thing. That's what I'm trying to do right now. All right, okay. This is cool. So send us next question, please. Unless, you have to keep checking in the chat. Check in the chat. Nothing there. Awesome. Come back. Okay. And they can't see that, so you can keep checking. Are you okay? It's not too much pressure? You can handle it? Cool. She's holding on to her earpiece as well. That's falling out. It's all intense here. Anyway, Sundas, next question.
I believe we should pray for awakening, a massive global awakening. And funny enough, that awakening is currently in progress. People are becoming aware that things are not as they seem, that there's someone pulling the strings behind what appears to us, and there's something else going on behind the scenes. So people are waking up to that reality, and we are asking for the truth to come upon people so that they can see that for themselves. Not everything is as it seems. When people awaken, the planet's ascension will happen sooner. The more people will ascend, the quicker the earth will ascend. So that is what we are asking for, more than anything else. Not for wealth, not for money, not for poverty to be lived on, because you will find that there are karmic ties, soul karma ties to various collective consciousnesses across the planet, and some will ascend, some will not ascend. Some people are still playing out karmic contracts, paying off karmic debts, so they will not do anything as yet. But while we are here, we can begin to ask and help with the awakening process as part of our ascension. To thine own self be true.
Cool. Thank you for trying so hard to stick to your 1.5 minutes. Here I go. What should you pray for? You should pray for others. So where do I get this idea from? So we know, and I always try to mix up my, the logical aspects, the scientific aspects, the spiritual aspects of what I understand. So we know from psychological studies that we are happier when we give. It's also in line with spiritual teachings. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, paradise is the home of the generous. So paradise is in this life and the next. So be generous, you'll be happier. And of course, we're told in Islam that if you pray for others, you spend all your time praying for others, the angels will just pray for you. So your job gets done, and they will probably pray for you better than you will, because they probably have a better understanding of your needs. They have a better big picture, and we often have a very tiny picture. We might pray for silly things, maybe, or counterproductive things. So yes, kept to my 1.5. I love it. All right. Yeah. So next one. Oh, did you check the chat? Okay, cool. I have to say thank you so much for all the questions. Anyway, Len.
What's the next question? How to stop making bad choices. Now, I think we've all been there. We've all made some bad choices, and you've all afterwards, hindsight is the best teacher in that way. You've all afterwards thought about myself, gee, if only I could have done another choice and chosen another path, another direction, this would not have happened. But it's within our natures. No choice is going to not help you to learn. We are here to learn. And if it teaches you not to make a choice like this in the future, then that's one way to do it. Now, there was a time when I made choices based on fear. What if? What if this is going to happen? What if that's going to happen? So you end up making a choice using the rational mind, the logical mind for that. But there's 3 levels of making a choice. The instinctive level, fight and flight responses. The intellectual level, the what if this, what if that. Statistically, this works better. Statistically, that works better. Most people tend to follow certain trends. So that's the other one you want to follow with rational decision making. And then there's the 3rd level up, the intuition, or what they sometimes call the gut instinct. No, it's the intuition. The intuition is the way you feel when you feel at peace. Try and make a choice in your mind. Try and imagine the outcome of that choice. And if it gives you peace in your heart, that's the right way to go. That's the way to make your decision, following the peace in your heart.
So I love listening to Len and taking any useful things that I can absorb. And one of them is you are ahead of the game just by planning your thoughts and not going by habit. So if you're actually thinking about your life, you are ahead of the game compared to most people, because most people are what we call creatures of habit. They do things without thinking. So you are winning already just by thinking about yourself. Now, how do we avoid making bad choices? There's an ultimate, like we call a touchstone or compass, as to if you realize God exists and you are wary of him watching you, you will be scared of making the bad choices, because bad choices are actually coming from selfish choices and they lead to bad places. So a bad choice might be, I'm going to, I don't know, steal and hope to get away with it. But actually, you will never be happy doing that. So the ultimate way of avoiding bad choices is being aware that God is watching you, and you will be so much happier when you keep making choices on that basis. Cool. This is a tough job. Is it quite tough? No, you're doing all right? Okay, cool. She's 8 years old. She's doing all right, you know. But better than me. Okay, so what do you know about the Supreme Being? Go for it. Go for it, Len. Sorry.
The higher self collectors have taught us that the Supreme Being we refer to as the Source, or the All That Is, became conscious and wanted to explore itself and become aware of itself by exploration. And the way to do so for it was to build within its own mind a holographic reality with 10 dimensions or multiple dimensions. This became the multiverse. And then the All That Is fragmented himself into this little container within its mind. And that became, the fragments became various things: galaxies, planets, universes, souls. We are all fragments of God, having a temporary human experience. Being a human in this time, in this point in my life, is not the only experience. We're here to experience this reality, this dimension. But in the earth plane, we are passing through a veil of forgetfulness, and this veil of forgetfulness prevents us from remembering who we are, so that we have a more authentic experience. So we effectively are collectively God having a human experience. So from that perspective, once we begin to remember who we are, we make decisions better, we choose our lives better. You have a lot more self-awareness. Having self-awareness, having soul awareness is a part of becoming aware that we are God having a human experience.
Cool. Thank you. It's hard, isn't it? To fit it all in. So when I talk about God, I have to be humble and not talk about how I feel like talking about God, but rather how God introduces himself. So amongst the different religions, the number one thing God likes to say about himself is that he is one, the omnipotent, all-powerful. So that's one thing. There's only one God. Now, you might say, oh, if you believe in all these different other spiritual traditions, they believe in different gods. I would say they all initially believe in one God, and we can go through different scriptures and things to explain that. But going past that, so the reason why one God is important, because he's the source of all power and you depend only on him. And I say him, I'm going to flip it and say God is very motherly. So in the Quran, the first two qualities after saying he's one is to say he is like the mother who takes care of your needs. He's literally known as the womb. If you don't know what the womb is, it's where babies are brought up in the belly. So he takes care of your needs. So caring, wants you to win. That'll do.
You know what? Carry on. I will be happy for you to carry on. Just give us a minute, complete what it is you wanted to say. I'm very curious to hear the end of that. Do you mind?
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, fine. So there are two qualities. Yeah, I'll just leave the timer for a minute, I suppose.
Mhm.
Let's give myself 1 minute. I want to control myself a little bit. What do you think? I don't know. Anyway, so so God, when he describes himself in the
Mhm.
Quran, he says, first of all, he is the one God, and he gives himself a name,
Mhm.
Allah, which is also common amongst the different religions. Eli or Eloha, I can't remember the exact
Mhm.
pronunciation in Hebrew,
Yeah.
means basically all means Allah. So he makes
Mhm.
himself personal.
Yeah.
He's very much into your life. So that's another
Mhm.
quality of God. And then he describes himself as the one who is so giving that he gives to everybody, whether they
Yes.
listen to him or not. They're like the rain. Everybody gets the rain,
Mhm.
whether they listen to him or not. Everybody gets air. So many things you
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
just for, because God is so kind. But then there's a second quality of God's motherly nature, as it
Mhm.
were, which so the words are Rahman and Rahim. Rahman means the one who just gives plentifully without anything, and Rahim
Mhm.
also, they sound the same. They both come from the word Rahm, which is the womb. So both of these qualities are motherly qualities,
Mhm.
and the second quality is the one that encourages you to do well and gives you the ability to do more, excel yourself,
Mhm.
and keep excelling yourself.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Len, since you asked especially?
Yes. From my experience and my exploration of the Kabbalistic esoteric Kabbalah, the esoteric Kabbalah gives you an impression, understanding, I want to use the word, of the source of the all that is, where the all that is portrayed in this image, this glyph called the tree of life, where you have the fatherly aspect of God, you have the motherly aspect of God, what we call the two pillars, the left hand pillar and the right hand pillar, the fatherly aspect and the motherly aspect. But the motherly aspect and the fatherly aspect, the motherly also represents the creator. No, I lie. The destroyer. There's the right hand of God is referred to in the book of the Psalms as the right hand of God is vengeful. There's a sword. He's a strong warrior. Where the left hand of God is the merciful side of God, the kindness, the calmness. And within the macrocosmic God, the all that is, there are many other gods and deities, because we've got all these thousands of Hindu gods, we've got the Roman gods, we've got the Norse gods, and they all correspond. If you place them on the tree of life, they all correspond. So you have the understanding that God is multi-aspected, multifaceted, like a diamond with many different sides and many different qualities, properties. But it's all part of who the all is. Now, imagine a magnet. You've got this magnet, huge big magnet. If you break that magnet and you chunk a chip of the magnet off, magnet has its own properties. The magnet is a positive and a negative and a magnetic field. If you
Oh,
create,
we have, okay, just finish it off in the last few seconds. We've got a
okay,
million new questions, so
yeah.
which is cool.
So
Yeah.
if you have this small fragment of a magnet, it assumes the same properties as the big magnet, the magnetic north pole, south pole, and magnetic field. So imagine us at a microcosmic level. The microcosmic level as a fragment of God is just as powerful with all the properties. So for every aspect of the divine there is in the all that is, those are all present within the self.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for rushing you a bit, Lenda. It's all deep stuff. It's hard to squeeze it
This
all
is
in, but
you have to
just
think a
to
lot
keep.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So is that that's the next question, yeah? So
Mhm.
Len, my guest, please, what happened if a gay person wants to be Muslim? I like this question a lot. If you want to go into things.
Yes. Well, I'm a gay man myself. I was married once to a wife until my higher self said, "You're living a lie. This is not who you are. You did not come to explore this in this lifetime." And I needed to come out of my marriage and somehow find a way to reconcile my spirituality, my faith, with my homosexuality. For me, my focus was not the homosexuality. It was the fact that, yes, I'm a gay man, but how do I have this connection? Until I discovered that In my world, I can be a gay man and be free because this is part of a soul choice that I made before coming into this lifetime. And I want every gay man to understand that you make a soul choice to come into this life for various reasons, whether it's to raise the collective consciousness of your culture that you are born into, or it's a lesson that you are coming to learn. Those could be the reasons. So if you want to be Muslim, perhaps you are here to raise the collective consciousness of the culture that you are born into. Perhaps you are here to help other Muslims to understand that it's not all about being gay. The sin side of it is not the focus. It should not be the focus, and it should never be the focus. There's a soul, you came to explore it, and this is what you are doing in this lifetime.
So thank you very much, Len, for sharing that very personal part of your life. It's not maybe not very personal, but I like that you shared it. And the other thing is that I also like that you said being gay is not your whole life. That is not the only thing that defines you.
No.
This thing I would like to share, and as I've been brought up in Islam, and you would find that in different religions, is this idea of love for all and hatred for none. And I think that is such an important message nowadays. When everybody's finding dividing lines, we should find ways of uniting each other. In Islam, to become a Muslim, all you have to do is believe that there's one God and realize that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is a messenger of God. And so that's all you need. Nobody is trying to be perfect. I do say being homosexual is just what I would describe as a choice. Some people might not realize or agree with that, but we can talk about that in the future. And also, besides it just being a choice, and nobody's perfect anyway. So even if somebody says, oh, that's a terrible thing, well, hang on a minute, who's perfect anyway? It's hard to squeeze it in 1 minute. I'd love to say a lot more than that. I would love to say a lot more than that.
I'm happy to give you the grace. I'd like to hear what you think about that, because I tried the thing about it being a choice, and you know what? It doesn't work. It's like saying being straight is a choice. I could not be straight if I tried.
Fair enough. Okay, give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. So click on it, and when it goes to 2, because I think it's so important, and especially with somebody who's gay on the show, I think it's worth, sharing a bit more.
Yeah.
So, So scientifically, there's no evidence to say, there's no strong evidence to say that homosexuality is a genetic thing. So that's what we're talking about. If it's not genetic, then we can call it a choice. And we can see that it's not genetic because there are places where acts of homosexuality increase. So you can be more interested in homosexuality or become gay, as it were, if you go to prison or certain environments where more of it is more common. And your genes, your DNA does not change according to your environment. We know that we're not like mutants or something that we can, like X-Men or something. So that's it. I said 1 minute. So yeah. I want you to respond a little bit because, I had an extra minute and this is very personal to you. So it's only fair, I think. So can you put another, we do want to kind of control it. But let's give it 1 more minute, please, Len. I want you to have the last word anyway.
Right. I agree with you that it's not necessarily a genetic thing. It may not necessarily be so, because for me, I think it's a consciousness thing. And it's a consciousness thing because I've seen documentaries on television where you had twins, young boys, twins. One was perfect, and I'm looking 7, 8, 9 years old. One were both both of them were very well brought up in a very stable environment with very good role models. But you had one boy who was inclined to play with dolls, and his brother was inclined to play with big monster trucks as toys, and they both grew up, one gay, one straight. The influences were the same. At a young age, they already saw the difference in the way these minds were working, in the way these children were playing. So for me, the choice does not necessarily happen at a physical level or a mental level, but at soul level. The soul has already decided that when that soul comes into this lifetime, it's here to either have the experience or learn the lessons involved, and there was a purpose for that to come about. I've had a conversation about this with a couple of hypnotherapists who work on the same work that we do, and they all seem to agree with me that it's a soul choice. It's not necessarily a conscious choice. That's me. That's me done. Time out.
Thank you. And it is a bit crazy that we're trying to fit in all these things into 1 minute and 2 minutes and whatever slots. But maybe, there's somebody else with a pressing question. And first of all, we appreciate Len for sharing and everybody else for asking so many great questions. So we're on the next question. What is the difference between the Bible and the Quran? Len, go first, please.
I've not studied, to be honest with you, I've not studied the Quran. I've done intensive Bible studies. I've also looked at something like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi to see how it compares to the Bible. Coming from a Bible only and the Bible being the Word of God background, I found that the Bible was tampered with and it was put together for political gain by people who claimed to be doing so, church clergy in the 3rd century. Many things in the Bible are modified, altered from my historical perspective. And people may disagree with me on that, but I've looked at stuff that was left out from the Bible in order to enslave people in ignorance. So from the Quran's perspective, I do not know. I don't know who wrote the Quran, when the Quran was written after the Prophet Muhammad lived his life on earth, but I think there's enough there to give you the guidance to a certain level, and I think this is what religion does. Religion brings you to a certain level, and then there's a point where you cannot evolve anymore. You cannot grow anymore, and then you need to start looking for something more, and then you need to find your esoteric path. And I think within Islam, it's the path of Sufism that allows them to transcend the religion and start exploring the higher self realms, the higher realms within, because it's esoteric, means within. That's where you begin to explore and discover the truths within yourself at soul level. So for us as the Christians, we looked at Gnosticism and we looked at Hermetics as the way to transcend the Bible and the Bible truths. And that's pretty much the background I come from. I cannot give any information on Sufism. I've not explored that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. The things you say do make me think about what I'm going to say. So, first of all, I think the most notable difference is that the Quran is in first person from God talking throughout. It's not different eyewitnesses saying this is what we saw or this is what we heard. So that's, I would say, a crucial thing, that this is 100% in the Word of God, rather than maybe some other scriptures might say something like influenced by God, or there's another word, I can't remember. And so there's another thing that is that there's been no evidence of any contradiction in the Quran, but in the Bible, it's well known there are all sorts of contradictions or things missing. It's well known. It's not like even biblical scholars would agree to that. But the thing that Len said that was particularly interesting was that the scriptures only take you a certain distance, and the Quran starts off by saying, or in the second chapter, saying that this is a complete book that has everything you need to take you as far as you possibly can. So that'll do for now. Thank you. Okay.
What's the next question?
Okay, so is it okay to eat non-veg? Oh, non-veg. I thought it was. You weren't confused like me, probably maybe. I don't know. Okay, Len, go for it. Send this timer.
Interestingly enough, that when I had my soul awakening, one of the first things I started feeling compelled to do was stop eating meat. And I did not understand why. Why do I feel this incredible urge driving me to give up eating meat? And then afterwards, I learned that we have what we call chakras, and eating meat blocks the chakras. So you need to allow. Now, what is chakras important for? It's to help you to gain spiritual sensitivity. So when you start eating meat, it blocks the chakras. It cuts off your spiritual sensitivity. So I needed to allow myself to be spiritually open by actually stop eating meat. So I'm a vegetarian, not vegan. So I've got no problem drinking milk and eating eggs and cheese. There's no problem with that. The other thing about meat, or non-vegetarian stuff in this case, is that when an animal dies, and this is from the Higher Self Collective, they tell you that that animal is put to death in a slaughterhouse where there is so much fear and so much panic, and all of that is absorbed into the meat of the animal. And you absorbing that meat to try and digest it, you are taking on all that energy. We are also energy consumers. We not only consume physical food, we consume energy. And when we do so, we end up with all that negative energy within our body. And that's conducive to things like cancer, cysts, growths, things, toxins in the body that you need to get rid of. That is why I feel it is a good reason to stop eating meat.
Thank you, Len. So first of all, we eat way too much meat in the Western world. When I was living in a village in the Middle East where we had our own chickens and grew a lot of our own food, we realized we were so far that we ate far less meat. We would eat meat as a family once a week on a Friday, like a celebration, and that would be about it. And that's plenty, I would say. We're eating so much meat at the moment that it's causing us all sorts of diseases like diabetes. However, we have to be careful about the balance. So is everything okay? Yep. Okay. Sorry, controller, I had to check with the controller. We have to do everything in balance. So we know that our teeth help us decide what kind of diet we should have. And so mostly flat teeth, but there's some canine teeth, the sharp teeth, and that suggests that we should be eating some meat. And those who don't eat meat, they do have health issues. Ooh, just caught it. Just did it on the 1 second there. Oof, it's hard work keeping into 1 minute. Thank you, Deputy Deepthi, for that question, and thank you everybody else. Thank you, Salim UK, by the way. He was saying he couldn't ask questions before because he was cooking what we know as parathas. Have you heard of a paratha, Len?
No, I don't know what that is.
It's a buttery. I'm getting distracted. Sorry, and my controller's saying, "Hang on a minute, what are you talking about? You should be on the next question." She's giving me instructions like my director. So what should I do?
Talk about the food.
Sorry?
Type of question.
Oh, oh, you want to ask a question? Oh, you can just ask a question. She really wants to ask a question. I'll hear your voice. You don't have to type it. Is that good? Okay. We should check your questions with Mummy first, normally, just to check if it's your favorite color, which is not a bad question. But okay, go on. Ask your question, Sundus.
How do you
Wait a second, let's get you nice and close. Go say again.
How do you fear God?
How do you fear God? Okay. All right. So Len, you go first. Send this timer, please.
there is an element of understanding what does fear mean? What is the meaning of the word fear, and what is the context? Because fear is not about being afraid of. We were told that you should be afraid of God, but God really doesn't operate on a being afraid of level. We should not have fear. Fear nothing. Be not afraid of anything. Be not afraid. More important so. But it's about having a healthy respect, having a good respect for the all that is. And that begins with self-respect, because you are a fragment of God having a temporary human experience, and all forms of respect stems from self-respect. If you can't respect anyone else around you or authority, it begins you not respecting yourself. So for me, it's about respecting the self, and then from there on, you will begin to respect others around you, and then they will respect you. And that's how respect works. So for me, respecting each other, respecting each other's choices, ways of life, is this other souls working their way through this lifetime, exploring different paths. And we should allow and we should respect that. It's not about right and wrong. The masters say that there is no good and evil. It's all expression in the higher realms. We're all here to explore different things. The only thing you need to worry about is karma. What karmic debt are you accumulating? I'm done.
Cool. Thank you so much for trying so hard to keep in that line limit. So fear of God in different faiths is really important. For example, in the Bible, it says fear of God is the ultimate wisdom. And in the Quran, it says that if you fear God, you'll have paradise. So what is fear of God? Is just an awareness of God, that God is watching you. And because God is subtle and kind, in the sense that you cannot always see God, but you can experience God in many ways, or realize God certainly exists in many ways. We have to constantly remind ourselves that God exists, and therefore also fearing God is a way of keeping God's the knowledge that God exists in our minds. And if we do that, we benefit, we make better decisions, we make the right decisions, we don't make decisions thinking that nobody is watching us. So how do you fear God? You just keep remembering God and thinking about God. But mostly, God is very kind. So don't just fear God. Know that God loves you and wants you to do well. Okay. Whew, I do find it quite hard to keep it into the limit. Oof. I just wanted to, before we get to the next bit, I just wanted to explain the thing about the parathas. Okay,
Yeah,
paratha, it's important, right? Okay, don't start the timer again. 1 second. Okay, these parathas, okay, they're buttery bread, famous for, in Pakistan and India. And so one of my friends, Salim, who's getting his son, Mr. Energy Farmer, to ask so many questions. I appreciate that, Mr. Energy Farmer. But he couldn't ask questions because he was making these parathas to break his fast. Because, parathas are great they're so tasty, they fill you up and things like that. So what I'm getting at is thank you, Salim, for getting off from making the parathas and asking the question. I appreciate it. That was my little speech. All right. Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll show you a picture of a paratha one day, Len, offline, so that everybody else is disturbed by that. Okay, next question, please. I'll read it out and then Len go for it. So, what is best? Donate a goat, a water well, scholarship, these for a poor person, a hospital, like make a hospital, or help an orphan for a year. Go for it, Len, and please start.
Well, I really don't know. As I said, you can't pour from an empty vessel. So if you want to think about the socio-economic experiences of a community you are working with, I would think a water well would be more suitable, because a water well is something that people will be able to benefit from on an ongoing basis for a long period of time.
Cool. Okay.
That's
My
it.
turn. Awesome. So when we're doing something of benefit to humanity, sometimes we feel like it's never enough. That's what any genuine person will see, that they've helped in one place, but what about the other place and the other place? And we should realize we are simply pawns, as in the smallest piece on a chess game, in God's chess game, as it were. And so we are just insignificant. If God wanted, he could solve all the problems. So what are we doing? What we're doing is we're making our little contribution. And if God sees that, then he makes the world a better place. The way I see it, well, I like to quote from the Quran a little bit so people appreciate that it's not just me saying things. So in terms of making sacrifice, God has said the flesh and the blood of your sacrifices do not reach me. It's your good intentions, your righteous deeds. So really it's about your intentions. Now, also, there are some things that cost less, like maybe sacrificing a goat and giving it to a poor person. And there's another, which is, starting your own hospital. These are all wonderful things. What should you do? You should do things according to your ability. So there's an example of Prophet Muhammad when he went to a poor person's house and they just had vinegar bread or something. And he said, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, that is wonderful food. So a rich person who was at that party thought, okay, when somebody comes to my party, I'm going to give them vinegar bread or whatever it was. And Prophet Muhammad said to that, he said, this food is terrible. And he said, what? I went to that party and it was great food over there, you said. And he said, that was because that was according to that person's standards. So you need to do things according to your standard. This is all spiritual exercise. If you have more ability and you work well below that, you will not be spiritually growing the way you need to, and you won't feel happy unless you spiritually strain yourself.
If you are Bill Gates, you can build a hospital. We are not all Bill Gates and we can't save the world, but we do within our means.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm glad what I made sense. So you verified that you understood what I said. So that's cool. Thank you, Len. Okay, where are we now? Are we at the end of those questions? Do we have any more questions on the chat? So we had a whole bunch of questions lined up, as well as. So do you know how to get to the chat on the top? Those are live questions. Cool. So no more. So now we go to the spinner. We're doing it all today. All right. So go for it. I'm glad we didn't miss out the spinner. It's a bit of fun, Does democracy work? So for this, what we need to do, I'm going to help you out a little bit. Okay, so what we need to do is, normally in this, what we do is copy paste it, but it's good that you suppose, yeah, okay, doesn't matter. So let me see, where are we? We need to go to the chat and we go click here. Does so shaky, isn't it? Democracy work? Enter. And then click. Cool. What's wrong? Is something wrong? I don't know what's wrong. She's making all sorts of faces. We need some sort of intercom or some advanced stuff. She's making faces. My 8-year-old daughter's going, ah! It's like something terrible has gone wrong. What's gone wrong? You can just tell me. It's not a professional show.
Abhijit Sharma has just put in a new question for us on the chat.
Oh, is that what you're saying? Len understands that I couldn't understand. Thank you, Len, for explaining. Okay, so shall we do Abhijit Sharma's question. Let's do that, yeah? What do you think, Sindus? Thank you, Abhijit. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. So Len, as my guest, please. So I'll read it out and then Len go for it. Oh, and Sindus, meanwhile, get to the timer bit, yeah? Okay. So Abhijit's question is, did Christianity originate from Islam, and was Jesus one of the messengers of God? Very interesting question. Go for it, Len.
It's a two-part question. Did Christianity originate from Islam? No. Was Jesus one of the many messengers of God? Yes. God sends messengers to humanity when they are in a position to hear the message. The message is the important part, not necessarily the messenger, because when the messenger gets to deliver the message, very often the messenger gets killed, which was what we see. The people did not like the message, but the people needed to hear the message. The message was the important part. And in many cases, even in Hinduism, if we find that very often a person gets killed because the people did not like the message at the end of the day. So it's important that we don't necessarily ignore the messenger, hear the message, learn the lessons, and respect the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. We've heard that phrase before, don't shoot the messenger. Now, there's a little story I've learned about somebody who had a past life in one of our training manuals or training videos that we did for exploring hypnotherapy, where a person was a little Bedouin boy as a messenger, a runner boy in the desert. And I don't know if I'm going to have time to tell this. I'm going to have to stop.
No, go on. Take 30 more seconds.
This Bedouin runner boy lived in the 10th century, where he was running between towns. That was his job, to deliver messengers for the Bedouin tribal leader. And the tribal leader one day said to the Bedouin runner boy, "You better run to that town and
just finish the story.
The army is coming." And he ran and he ran and he got to the town, but by the time he got to the town was destroyed. This was a past life recollection by one of our clients. And then the Bedouin boy ran back to his village and he told his Bedouin leader, "Sorry, I arrived there and it was too late. The army had arrived. They already killed everyone." The Bedouin leader was very angry. And he had the poor boy buried in the sand, his head stuck out in the sun, and the next day the boy was dead, because the baking sun and your head sticking out, it was just too much. The body cannot survive something like that. Now, in this day, the Bedouin tribal leader, this is a case where they shot the messenger. The tribal leader turned out to become the father of this lady who was born into this Christian family. The father is now a Christian preacher. The boy was the daughter of this Christian preacher in this lifetime, because the souls had contracted to pay back the karma, to pay back the karmic debt by helping to raise and look after in this lifetime for this particular boy. So this is now this lady, and she has a problem with her father because of that lifetime when they did not see each other, and they had their own issues to deal with in this lifetime, and the father was still not doing a very good job of it at the end of the day. But it's an interesting story how the lifetime there translates into this lifetime and the issues they are dealing with in this lifetimes, how to fix that kind of problem. You build karma from a past life, you still have to deal with that karma in this life, and you have your opportunity to resolve it. But yes, in this case, don't shoot the messenger. Jesus was one of the messengers. He got crucified at the end of the day. There were many other messengers that came into the world to bring an important messengers, whether it's Zoroaster, whether it's Buddha, and the various Buddhas that came after that, and so on. Here we go. Sorry about that.
That's all right. No, Len, I'm just so grateful that you're here. So I really appreciate it. And I do know it's so hard to cut. It's lovely to tell stories as well, isn't it? But, we're experimenting with these short things. I'm going to do a 1 minute answer. And then I'm going to do an outro where I'm going to say like the websites where we can learn from each other and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, 1 minute. Here we go. Did Christianity originate from Islam? No, Christianity came first. But at the same time, the idea, the way God talks about Islam was that there was an original message that was Islam, that was the idea was there in the beginning of time, but it could not be revealed straight away because depending on our development as human beings, we could not necessarily handle it. So Islam is an international religion, and the other religions were what we call tribal religions. And was Jesus one of the messengers of God? Absolutely. So there's even a chapter in the Quran called Jesus or Isa, and there's even a chapter about Mary as well. So I think, I'm not sure about Jesus, but Jesus is mentioned a lot more times than Prophet Muhammad anyway in the Quran, which is an interesting fact. So just a quick intro, because I'm so grateful for Len being here. I just want to put his website, which is also in the description anyway, so you can contact Len if you're interested in what he's got to say at this website. Can you say that? What does it say?
It's Orini, quantumhealing.co.uk. We are a group of hypnotherapists working as quantum healers. And Orini was a soul name that was given to me when I first started connecting with my higher self. So that was pretty much where that comes from.
Cool. And if you want to learn about where I learn my stuff from, go to bigquestionsanswer.com, and you can also see all the previous videos with me, Len, and even before Len turned up. So, but thank you so much, Len. I'm going to go now. I'm going to break my fast, but always fantastic having you on the show. And just want to thank you everybody for participating. Really, really appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Bye. Bye. Go on. You can end the stream.